Lemon Amiga present. A Play Giant video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, welcome to another LemonAmiga.com game guide review. This time we'll be taking a look at the 1991 game Outrun Europa, developed by Probe Software for US Gold and released through a Sega license. So here we are on the title screen where we can press F1 to select between the in-game sound effects and the music, and we can also press F2 to select the control between the joystick and the mouse. So let's dive into the game and check this out. In this game we play as a spy known as Simon Kurtz, who is an agent operative working for Unit 6 based in London. Having recently gained a set of secret documents which have been subsequently stolen, it's your job to track these down. Luckily for you, the thieves have also stolen your trusty Ferrari F40, which has been fitted with a satellite tracking device which allows you to track the thieves throughout Europe. You know the thieves have planned an exchange in Berlin, but you must follow them in order to make sure they don't deliver the documents to someone else. And to do this, you must make use of all available transport, the first of which is a turbo motorbike, which comes complete with 5 turbos, with more available for you to pick up along the way. Each section of the game has its own time limit, and colliding with the scenery will slow the player down, having to speed up, and because that time limit is pretty tight, they can't afford too many knocks. And also the player will have to negotiate several bends in the road. Taking the left hand fork is usually the easier of the two ways, although it might be longer and with a shorter time limit, and the right hand fork is generally harder, often narrower and more difficult, perhaps a little bit shorter with a longer time limit. So for this playthrough I'm going to be choosing the right hand road. Now Simon Kurtz then, he's reported the incident to his operatives at Agent 6, and they've decided to name him as a rogue agent. So your details have been passed on to other agents in the area, and if you notice any black cars on the screen, that's an agent coming up behind you who's going to be determined to ram you off the road. Your details have already been passed on to the police, and it's their job to arrest you. And if they manage to get in front of the player and slow the player down to a stop, you'll find yourself in jail, and you'll have to use up one of your 4 continues to carry on with the game. After the first level then, we make our way down to Dover and steal a jet bike to make our way across the channel, which opens the door towards level 2. On the second level we find ourselves piloting a jet ski heading across the channel towards Calais, and here we have to dodge all manner of things in our way: rocks, lighthouses, ships, trawlers, and buoys, and also the police and the other agents will be behind us, determined to knock us off. We can destroy those police helicopters hopefully by pressing the fire button. We can fire a surface-to-air missile, but those police helicopters do tend to materialise pretty quickly, and oftentimes those surface-to-air missiles don't do much good. So the best thing to do is to avoid everything as much as possible. A great thing about this level is the background graphics slowly wind their way into the foreground, which gives the illusion of us crossing the channel and the cliffs of Calais getting ever closer. And this is a great effect on this level, and this particular section is very fast and often difficult. It can be said it's my favourite level of the game, even though it's my least favourite level of the game when too many obstacles get in our way and we end up crashing off every few seconds. So that can be very difficult. And when you see the lighthouses appearing, that gives away that we're near the finish line of this particular level, and here we are at the docks. So let's see what we can find to steal. Oh, look at that, there's somebody's left a Porsche there. Well, I think we'll have that. I'll move on to level 3. Having made our way to France, it's back on the roads again, this time in a Porsche, with slightly wider roads, but as we shall see later on, slightly trickier bends as well. And you might notice the traffic changes from level to level. In London we have taxi cabs, and now that we're nearing Paris we find Renaults and Citroens, Renault 5s there, Citroen 2CV, and let's take the right hand fork again to avoid the main streets of Paris, and we'll take the slightly trickier back roads around the outskirts of Paris to hopefully make the job slightly easier. So let's just compare this game to the other variants available out there. There was also an Amstrad CPC version, and obviously the Atari ST looks pretty much like the Amiga, but I hope you can see from these screenshots the Amiga is not only the most colourful, it is also the fastest and the best, I have to say, out of all these versions. So let's get rid of those and get back to our jaunt through Paris. Here we see the agents, our fellow agents, are right behind us, and it's very tricky to get past those things on a bend. Sometimes if they get on the inside on the bend it's not too bad, but if they get on the outside of you, they will just ram you into the scenery. To get rid of those guys, all you need to do is to either drive around a vehicle and they will collide with the rear of that vehicle and slow down. You can crash and they will head off into the distance, or the easiest way is just to ram them 3 or 4 times hard in the side, and that will make them collide and back off for a number of seconds. So just like that, as soon as you see those guys, ram them off. The only other emergency defense you have is to use the turbos. You can see I'm down to 4 turbos now, having just picked one up. You can pick those things up as you're driving along the levels. You'll find red canisters, and you'll also find extra rockets as well for the sea crossings. And I'm spinning out quite a lot here actually. You'll find those, but it's best to hit those in the side to pick up those canisters. I've noticed driving directly over those doesn't necessarily give you the item, and so it's best to knock those in the side. So the other players are making this journey very difficult, so I'm trying my best to keep this thing pointed in a straight line. And you might think I can simply use a turbo here just to get some distance between me and the bad guys. Unfortunately, with these bends, as we head on down to Toulouse, are pretty sharp, and using turbos on those bends will just send the player off into the barriers. So if you have selected a turbo, remember you can pull back on the joystick to switch the turbo off momentarily as you go around those bends, and then when you push forward on the joystick again, your turbo will kick back in. So that's definitely a tip to remember. And when that happens, you should see flames emanating from your exhaust like this. And on these levels they don't move particularly very fast. They tend to get faster and faster as the game goes on, which is a good thing. So the last level, the game plays at full frame rate, and it seems kind of a shame that the whole game doesn't run at full frame rate, but never mind. So here we go. We are now heading our way through the last of the villages on our way to the Pyrenees, and the border won't be far off. So one criticism I'd like to level at this game is the checkpoints aren't particularly obvious to the player. The only way the player will get to know that they've successfully traversed a checkpoint is that the time will be reset. So there are no people waving flags or any crowds or anything like that, so you really don't have any idea how close you are to the checkpoint. What will happen is that the game will pause, slow down and stop when you get to the right place and give you a nice cutscene animation, and that will take you on to the next stage. But I can't help feeling that those checkpoints are a little ambiguous, to say the least. So let's cross the Pyrenees and make our way down through Barcelona. So Outrun Europa was coded by Stuart Gregg, who only made another game for the Amiga, one more game called Horror Zombies from the Crypt, which was released in 1991. The graphics were produced by Soul Merchees, who coded the graphics for a rake of games such as Super Hang-On, Power Drift, Ghostbusters 2 in 90, and he went on to do the campaign series in 92 through to 94, and additional graphics by Hugh Riley, who is also no stranger to the Amiga, having crafted the graphics for Supremacy, The Last Ninja Remix, Hammer Fist, all of which were in 1990. He created the graphics for Back to the Future Part 3 in 91 before creating Outrun Europa, and he moved on to Alien 3 and Aladdin AGA as well in 1994. So it's little wonder Outrun Europa turned out to be highly playable given the calibre of those people involved, and at least not Matt Furniss is credited with the music. And many people might remember the Castle Master theme he made for that game, Shadow Warriors, Soccer Kid, Clax, Badlands, Chase HQ, a whole lot of games for the Amiga, most of which are football games as well. He did quite a lot of football games and spin-offs from that. So Matt Furniss, definitely one to watch out for. And it's a pity this game defaults to sound effects on the title screen, because to me the music is particularly well done on this game. So the first thing I do upon a boot is to change to the music by pressing F1. So let's take the right hand fork here to save us going through Barcelona, and again pick through these back streets on our way down to Valencia. So it's worth saying at this point that this game was started in 1988, directly after the original dire, appalling version of Outrun came out on the Amiga, and that has to be amongst the worst driving games ever ported to the Amiga. So to make up for that, they decided to make an even better game, and they continued to develop the game through 1989 and even previewed the game in 1989. And then US Gold came out and said, look, we need a conversion of Turbo Outrun from you guys, so I'd like you to put Outrun Europa on the shelf and make Turbo Outrun instead. So that's particularly precisely what they did, and Outrun Europa was shelved and finally came out in autumn of 1991, a full 3 years after development started. So I think in that time the coders have definitely squeezed more attention to detail out of this game, much better graphics, much better playability. The Porsche in particular, it still feels like it's driving on ice, and it does tend to slip around there, so the road traction doesn't particularly make a difference on the sea crossing levels, where slip sliding around actually is a benefit on those levels. But on this level, as we head on through and pick up a speedboat in Valencia, that mechanic, has to be said, it's not particularly well done on the Porsche levels. And here we are, now we've gained a speedboat heading across the Mediterranean to Italy, and the rocks are still there, the lighthouses, the agents which need ramming off, and on these levels, on these sea levels, it can be a matter of luck over judgment sometimes. The level does play very fast, and so it can be difficult enough avoiding all the traffic. One tip I will say is sometimes going to the very far left or the very far right of the screen gets rid of the bulk of the main traffic in the main sea lane, so sometimes driving directly off the screen works, except for you will find rocks as well in the way, which sometimes you're going too quickly to avoid. But unlike the other Outrun games, particularly the original Outrun in the arcade, it has to be said, this game does accommodate a number of crashes. I remember on the original Outrun, one crash would wipe your chances of completing the entire game, and even on Turbo Outrun, 2 crashes would ruin the chance of completing the level. But on Outrun Europa, on the Amiga, it seems to make allowances for that kind of thing, which is great given the amount of crashes that I'm actually doing on this particular level. You can see there, I blew up the helicopter, and yet the bomb that it released still managed to blow me up. So sometimes those dodgy mechanics don't work in its favour. But here we go, we've reached the harbour wall now in Naples, and here we find our Ferrari F40, which we can use to speed through Italy on our way towards Germany. So straight away we are given the option to drive into town, but I think we'll leave Naples behind and take the major route towards Rome. And the car really does shift on these levels. As I say, once you get into the Ferrari F40 on this level and the next one, the frame rates are set to maximum. We really do not need to use turbos on this section, mainly because of the twisty, windy roads which will throw us off, but also because I only have 2 turbos remaining. And on these sections you will find Beetles and Fiats, and the bad guys seem to be driving something that looks ominously like a Lotus, to be honest, a black Lotus Mark II, given away by the rear tail lights there. And the police will also be driving Fiat Pandas. So looking at these background graphics, you might think that these sprites are pretty basic. The buildings are thin, to say the least, but as long as it doesn't detract from these frame rates, that's not a bad thing at all. The sky is gradient filled, but it's not graduated with a copper effect, which might have slowed the game down again. But you will notice the backgrounds do change maybe 3 times over a level as we drive through fields and cities, and even as we emerge out of tunnels, the scenery does change to give the illusion of progress throughout Europe. And I also like the way you're being chased not only by your own team but by the police as well. So 2 pursuers adding to the mix is definitely makes this game pretty unique, and even comes with a storyline which these days, you know, is non-existent in games mostly. So let's head on down. Whereabouts are we? Rome, heading towards Liechtenstein now on the border. Let's see if I can get there. These seconds are tick-tocking down, but again I've no idea where the checkpoint is. Well, spinning off doesn't help either. That can be quite infuriating in this game, but I seem to have got through a checkpoint. So I guess you could say sometimes this game plays fairly, sometimes it gives you a lot of credit, particularly when you get through checkpoints in the nick of time when you don't even know where they are. But sometimes, as I say, particularly over the boat crossing levels, this game can be frustratingly hard, particularly when you crash out over every least bit of a thing. And even though you do get 4 continues, sometimes the police if they get in front of the car, can slow you down to a stop very quickly. So you have to be on your toes and use the turbos to get out of the way of the police there, and that will often send you careering into the barriers. So no easy way out really. And here we are, we've found the border to Germany, even though there isn't a border with Germany from Italy. But we'll gloss over that. We'll just imagine that Switzerland and Austria don't exist. So let's take the right hand fork again to save us going into Munich and head on down through Leipzig into Berlin. One good thing about this level, this final level, actually it is in the game, is it is now dusk and we've spent all day travelling from one vehicle to another. So throughout this level you will see the sky change from evening to night, which is again a terrific feature and rarely seen in driving games. On the Amiga it tends to be a night course. I'm thinking of Jaguar XJ220 and Lotus, so to have the sky change is a novel feature. I've now run out of turbos, it looks like, so I've just driven over one. Sometimes you just fall over those things by mistake, and sometimes it's really hard. Oh, the police have got me. Let me out! And then back we go to the Alps to try that again. So let's see if we can get a bit further this time without any more police interference. So to begin my conclusion of this game, there are many things to like about the game. The graphics, the sound, the music definitely. The sound effects are a bit poor, to be honest, but much better than the Commodore 64 version, for instance. And the playability, apart from the Porsche, which tends to not grip the road as well as you might expect, all the other vehicles operate in this game very well indeed. They are fast and reactionary, and you can usually manoeuvre your way around obstacles if you are fast enough, and by piling on the brakes you can get around even the toughest bend if you are quick enough. And that's certainly a good thing about the game. It's very playable. As I say, there are a number of things which could have been improved. The checkpoints, for example, aren't indicated, and games like this really do benefit from being faster and smoother. This game was coded for the Amiga 500 00 chipset, so it doesn't benefit from any CPU upgrades or even fast RAM, which is a shame, and there was no AGA version. But compared to Turbo Outrun, I think the guys have made a valiant job, and compared to the original Sega Outrun on the Amiga, I don't think the guys could have made a worse job coding that if they tried. So any improvement on that formula gets the thumbs up from me. I suppose the most annoying point is slip sliding your way off and crashing into the barriers a bit too often for my liking. The game is pretty lenient, but to be honest, the fact that the player goes off can be infuriating, even if they still make it to the checkpoint, even if there's still time to spare, because the player has to be reset back on the track to continue. I like the fact that this game has variety on offer. Moving from different vehicles is always novel, and we weren't really able to swap vehicles in a game until the Grand Theft Auto series came along, and games like Driver 2 and that kind of thing. So really, the ability to swap vehicles was ahead of its time. I can only think of Hunter, and of course the Mercenary series as well. Those games were pioneers in the day, and now moving in and out of vehicles is commonplace. Even on the latest first-person shooters, you can jump into a tank and drive away. But on this 2D environment, in conclusion, the graphics are actually quite well drawn compared to Jaguar XJ220. Crazy Cars 3 stroke Lamborghini Challenge, I think the graphics really hold up well, if not slightly better. I think because the graphics are centered in the screen and there's a big black board around everything, that gives away the fact that this isn't a full screen game. Certainly not full screen like Lotus 2 was full screen, and that means there were some limitations that the coders had to get around. So we're coming up to the end of the game now. This skyline is Berlin. 7 seconds left and 1 million crashes between here and the checkpoint. 1 second to go, 0 seconds, and I've made it. I can't believe it, 0 seconds. And I didn't slow down, I didn't stop, I've made it. I couldn't see the checkpoint, and I slowed down behind all these guys, the agents there, and the police, and the buttons do flash when those things are on our tail, but really you get to see those anyway, so there's not point observing the dashboard for that kind of indication. The points you accumulate are, well, you can probably get 400,000 in this game, which is pretty measly, really. Never mind. But to me, one thing that seems definitely lacking is a high score table. When you get a high score on the game, it will appear on the title screen as a high score, but when you turn off the machine, you will lose it. There's certainly no save option to save your high scores to disk, even on the WHD load version. So getting a high score on this game isn't as good as it could be. But when you do get to the end of the game, and I'm nearly there now, you are presented with another novel animation, which I won't give away, just in case you want to complete this game for yourself, and another very special tune to go along with it by our friend Matt Furnace. So that's Outrun Europa on the Amiga. Next up, we'll have a look at a kind of a sequel to that game, really, Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast, which is a port of Outrun 2 SP, and that appeared on the Xbox and the PlayStation and the PC in 2006. So before we start, let's go into the options and make sure our trusty Amiga zip stick, there it is, Amiga, is selected, so we can play this game with the zip stick. And this is the PC conversion of Outrun Coast to Coast we're looking at the moment. And here's my progress. This is the medium level. Managed to get A on most of the levels so far. So let's see how far we can get on this game. Let's pick a decent ride, automatic, and we can also change the soundtrack in classic Outrun style. So really this was the closest to a licensed update to the original Outrun. Unbelievably, Outrun, the second Outrun, the Turbo Outrun, wasn't a licensed product, even though the ROM could be fitted in the original Outrun stand-up, sit-down machines to upgrade it to Turbo Outrun. The Sega Corporation didn't see fit to license it, and neither did they recognise Outrun Europa as an official licensed update. So we really have to look towards Outrun 2, which this is a variant of, to get that update. And as you can see, the graphics are much more improved. We now have sky textures, road textures, buildings which appear, and you might notice the screen flashes there. And that's because my screen ripper can't save the data to the disk, as the hard disk is currently loading the level. So while it's reading, I can't write. So that's an epileptic warning there that the screen will flash. But you can see the tremendous amount of speed that comes out of this game engine, particularly compared to most things the Amiga had to offer. And that's basically the modern CPUs and the modern GPUs on 3D graphics cards. So if the Amiga had a 3D graphics card, you'd be able to see something like this. you might notice it's difficult to keep the car on the road on this game, probably because I'm playing this inadequately, to be honest. What the player must do is to throw the vehicle into a steep slide, throwing the joystick back, left, back and right diagonally, and that will lock the wheel. And while you are turning in a very short turn, you can then instigate a slide maneuver, and that will get you through most of the hard, difficult, tight corners by sliding like this. And you might not appreciate the difficulty of throwing the car into a slide, but that's what you must do, and that will lose a modicum of speed as well. So in this game you have to judge whether a slide is necessary, particularly because you will lose speed going to a slide. Luckily, if I collide with the cars, the vehicles, the scenery, you won't really lose a tremendous amount of time, and the vehicles will crash out of our way, crash into those like this, which is a tremendous feature in this game. If only that had been incorporated in Outrun Europa, then we wouldn't have to bear so many spins. The sky changes colour, the days turn to evening. On this Las Vegas level we get rain as well, which makes the car slip slide around, reminding us of the Porsche level, actually, level 3 on Outrun Europa. And the frame rate, as I say, is really fast in this game, just enough again to give the player notice that the bend is coming up, and you will notice a number of roll signs as well. As soon as you see any chevrons, whack that thing into a slide and power slide your way around the bends, particularly on these 90-degree corners that you find in Las Vegas. That requires us to be in a constant slide there, and again try and choose our exit route. On this level we can only go one way, so when we see the red chevrons there indicating that the road changes direction, we must go to the appropriate side, otherwise we will collide into those. So this is the last stage on this level, and as you can see I'm position 1 out of 30 other competitors, and having 30 other computer controlled drivers is a really good feature in this game. It really gives the player a sense of achievement when they get beyond those, and it is still possible to crash in this game and do the most amazing spins if the player doesn't instigate a skid like this, and then they will have to get beyond the other players again. So that failed skid there has meant I'm down to 3rd, and before we get to the checkpoint we will then be passed by another car, which makes sure we are 4th. But really good game, really enjoy that game, particularly on the PC, and it's also available on the consoles and the Xbox 360 Live. So thank you for viewing my play guide review of Outrun Europa.